Welcome to the June 3rd, 2024 regular town council meeting for the Verona Town Council. Madam Clerk, can you please read the public notice?
The notice requires Meetings Act of respect to this meeting of the Township Council. The meeting time and date along with the public internet link. Said notice of meeting agenda, municipal building and sent to the time, Star Ledger, 48 hours for handouts can be viewed. Agenda instruction.
And can you please do the roll call?
Councilwoman
Here.
Councilman Roman. Here. Deputy Mayor.
Here. Anything else?
Not yet. Oh, I'm sorry. Also, the Yarko Deputy Municipal Clerk Jennifer.
Thank you. Can everybody join? Stand up one for the fighting big cake. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of the Republic and one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Time the mayor is away this evening, but he will be joining us shortly. We're going to move along. He will do his report later on. I'm going to call Julius Coltre, our county deputy.
Thank you. Pleasure being here. We'll start with the big one, which is the pickleball. On Friday, the opening, I would have heard this tomorrow morning at our construction meeting. And so Friday, June 7th at 11 a.m. promptly, Essex County, Verona Park, 475 Bloomfield Avenue, Verona, will be opening up the remodeled or resurfacing of the tennis courts and the new pickleball. And I know everyone in town is thrilled about it. You know, and there'll be more traffic in the park. So that being said, some other things coming along on where are we? Verona. Verona, we have Jersey Sound on Wednesday, June 26th at Verona Park. These are the live local concerts. We also have 3 fireworks throughout the county. One is in Branchford on Friday, June 28th. They have New Jersey Symphony. Tuesday, July 2nd in Weequahic Park, Minnesota. And on Wednesday, July 3rd, Brookdale Park, the Infernos. The other thing that are happening, if you haven't been to the wellness at the waterfront at the Cody Arena behind, which is the Essex County South Mountain Recreation Complex, Monday, July 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, and 29th. There's a full body hit. Come join and get in shape. It starts at 6:30. And then on Tuesday, July 9th, 16th, 23rd, 30th at 7 p.m., they have jamming in July. July 9th, they have the Chatham Community Band. 16th, they have West Orange Community Band. 23rd, they have the Maplewood Band and Sterling Sample drumming on the 30th. Also have yoga for adults July 11th, 18th, and 25th at 6:30 p.m. So there's a lot of things happening at the recreation complex and throughout the county. You should have also, and if you haven't yet, they'll be coming out. Usually we send out the total calendar for all the things that are happening and festivals throughout the county. So, Mayor, anything at this particular time? Deputy Mayor.
Jay, thank you. I did drive through the park tonight. The pickleball course is great. I managed to adjust my schedule, so I will be joining on Friday, which is nice. I just tell the public, look at the county's website because if you want some free concerts and fireworks all summer long, your schedule is pretty full.
And our golf course are packed if you're a golfer, and all the other activities we have. So if you need anything, shout out. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to go to the fire report. Mayor in later. Concerts for the county for the summer. Obviously, the township has finalized their concerts, and that posting will be up soon through July and into August. I think there's a total of 5 this year. Next Saturday morning, just so everybody knows, the Valerie Fund has the walk-in fun run, a 5K. If you're up for it at 9:30, and then at 11 a.m. we have the Pride flag raising right here in Town Center. So I'm hoping everybody can join us for that if you have the morning open. I do want to thank the township and everybody involved for the Memorial Day parade we had. Unfortunately, we didn't have the parade, but we had a nice, very nice ceremony. We never want to cancel a parade. It was heartbreaking, but the weather turned out nice, so we got to do stuff outside. So thank you to, I would like to thank the mayor. He had a very good speech and ran a good program. Other council members were here and their family members joined us, which was very nice. Their sons and daughters, the police, fire and rescue squad, the veterans, and then finally a thank you and congratulations to our Grand Marshal, Doug Huber, very well deserved. This past Saturday, I did attend the Peckman Trail cleanup. Once again, Environmental Commission does a good job of cleaning up our town, and volunteers always come out at every one in there. It's like, oh, I never knew there was this trail back here behind FM Brown. So visit it and keep it clean. And then lastly, everybody, just so you know, tomorrow is election day. Get out and vote at some point. And I'd like to thank the clerk for all her hard work and good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
And that's all I have. I'm going to turn it over to our manager.
Thank you, Deputy. Item 2 on my agenda is the emergency services facility. The next public meeting. Everybody's asking about the last meeting. It's a town-wide meeting. It's on June 26th. There'll be a mailer going out to the community. Our public information officer is also releasing information to every community notification outlet that we do have, and that will be at the community center. And those letters will be going out at 7 p.m. on June 26th. Item 3 on my agenda, 3 and 4 actually. We have 2 proposals in from professional fundraising firms. That firms, Kevin and I will have a recommendation for you at the next meeting. And that is strictly targeting support funding for the emergency service facility. There is a request pending from item 5 is the mid-year election, which the township clerk has requested. That's still on your agenda for discussion now or later, at the council's pleasure. The interlocal health services is under review. I'll have a recommendation for the next meeting for you. I did have a meeting with the president, and Kevin and I both met with the president of Colwell University, even though I wrote Colwell College, I'm dating myself. Colwell University relative to I think it was the mayor's inquiry about pickleball courts up at the college university. And at the same time, I did talk to the president about the university of their recreational facility space, their gyms and their fields, because you have a demand on your current spaces, and with the Board of Ed demands on them, now demands on them, and with more kids in town, you may need more space, and a town and gown relationship with Colwell University may be a productive inroad. So that meeting did happen. I'll be having another meeting up there with our professionals looking at the facilities. David will be going up there, as well as our engineer, to see what exactly is there, what exactly would be involved, and what we can do with the university. The new parking lot signage sponsorships have gone to the Chamber of Commerce. We'll be having another meeting with the Chamber. I gave the Chamber the first opportunity to select and sponsor the new parking lot signs before I reach out to the balance of the business community. And the Verona, I think I already advised the council that the Verona pool entrance sign has been sponsored by Lakeside Deli, waiting for their logo that they would like on the sponsor board, and however the business name they would like. And shortly, now that the good weather is here, the sign on the triangle, which has been sponsored by the Acura dealership, will start shortly. So you'll see a change there. The background, you saw that already, but for the public's information, the background will be your town color, not the background that's there now. There'll be the town seal in that circle where there's nothing, and it's being completely rehabbed on site. That's all I have, unless the council has specific questions before I turn it over to.
Questions?
Yeah.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll try to go through my report relatively quickly, but the first item on my report is the pool rate study. We continue to work with NewGen, collecting the data on the pool membership and the revenues. And we're also working with our recreation department to form a complementary strategic plan. We're looking to gather all the data through the entire pool season and then present that to the council at the end of the pool season.
Okay.
The next item on my report is regarding a number of wastewater infrastructure items. We are continuing to make progress on a number of the smaller. We're continuing to make progress on a number of the smaller projects, and we have the primary clarifier pumping station project submitted to the iBank, and we have the next two projects that were approved through capital planning. They are scheduled and lined up to be submitted to the iBank. And additionally, we are preparing for a smoke testing program later this summer. We'll complement that with public education and public awareness with information going out to the public several weeks prior to that starting. Regarding zoning and building, we have new zoning fees going into effect on July 1st. Our new stormwater and stormwater escrow fees have been adopted and implemented. And we are currently working with our zoning and building departments to create a new land use resolution compliance process to help ensure compliance with approved projects from beginning through completion. Moving on to some of our drinking water projects, we have Lynn Drive Well continues to be under construction. They are still anticipating completion by the end of the year. Later this evening, we will have the public hearing for the Fairview Avenue well. That is regarding the diversion application. Once we complete that process and receive approval from Green Acres, we anticipate going out to bid on the Fairview Avenue well rehab project. And there are a number of different class action settlements that the township continues to work with special counsel on, pursuing additional funding and support for these PFAS projects. Jumping ahead, we continue to work on a number of different stormwater items as well. We have an ongoing dialogue with Blue Acres. They have confirmed that they do have 2 property owners that they've coordinated with and a potentially third property owner that's interested in having discussions with them. We are also working on completing the final bid documents for the Peckman River project. We did receive final permits. Now the final design plans need to be modified to reflect the conditions of those permits. We're hoping to get those final designs and final calculations completed so we can put this project out to bid later this summer. And we have an upcoming flood control advisory board meeting on the 24th. With parking meters, we've implemented the new parking meter rates through Park Mobile and at the meters. The collection has reflected the new rates, and we've also ordered new parking meter kiosks. We are expecting them to be delivered within the next 6 weeks, we're hoping, and getting them installed in the municipal parking lots. We continue to work through our local government energy audit. Field visits continue, and they will continue for the next few weeks, and then it'll turn into a report, recommendation, and presentation to the council later this summer. We are also continuing to work with a consultant on a solar feasibility study. We are meeting with that consultant again on June 5th to review the updated recommendations. And once it's at a point where it's ready for public discussion, we'll bring it to the council for presentation. The community center playground and ADA restrooms, it's been a little bit quiet. The contractor there has been waiting for delivery of equipment. They are expecting equipment towards the end of June, which lines them up for performing general site work this month. You should start to see more activity picking up in the next week or two, and it will line them up for delivery and installation of the play structures, and then the ADA restrooms, we're hoping that they come shortly after that. With our road repaving projects, happy to report that Derwent Avenue is completed. We're performing a final inspection, and a punch list is being prepared so we can get ready for project closeout there. Ballston Whitney Windermere continues under construction. No delays have been encountered. Douglas Place, we've held our pre-construction meeting, and we are preparing for a neighborhood outreach meeting, and that will line us up for sometime in mid to late June or early July. And also we have continued our Complete Streets Technical Assistance Project with the Linden Avenue study. We had a in-field observation on May 29th with a number of different representatives from the Complete Streets Technical Assistance Team. We will be continuing to work with them through the summer. They're looking to provide a temporary demonstration of potentially a few different options of speed control measures that can be implemented in Linden Avenue. Those would be in place for a few weeks this fall, and then we'll be a walkthrough audit afterwards to see how they performed and see what kind of feedback we get from those observations and those demonstrations, and then that will be implemented into the final design of the Linden Avenue project for 2025 construction. Regarding Everett Field, we've continued to sit tightly waiting for responses on a number of grant applications. I think at this point we've now received a number of responses on those grants, so we're going to be preparing to present those final plans back to the mayor and council probably at the next meeting for review of final project scope and cost, and for final authorization on those elements from the mayor and council. We've also begun discussions on our pickleball court project. We've had some initial meetings with the pickleball community in Verona. We've updated some concept plans. Those are going into a more formal design process, and we'll continue with the outreach through the pickleball community, the recreation department, and then eventually recreation advisory committee and mayor and council. And then there are also a number of different sustainable initiatives. We continue to advance our discussions with Beyond Pesticides. We're looking to work with them, hopefully to implement or to have an organic land management for some of our natural grass fields for 2025 spring season. They're pulling together final financing and preparing the technical assistance for that this summer and fall. Hopefully that'll be in place for spring of 2025. In addition, we've also met with our 5-member green team that was awarded to the township through Sustainable Jersey's PSE&G partnership. They will be studying Centennial Field and the upcoming needs at Centennial Field for rehab and refurbishment. And they will be looking at the pros and cons of grass versus artificial turf. So that team, we have met with the team. They will be starting their study the week of June 10th. That concludes my report unless there's any questions.
Thank you. So, I know we keep referring to it as pickleball courts, but we're not losing tennis, right?
Right. The concept plan, which is being presented at this point, would have a tennis court and adjacent to it, I believe it's 3 or 4 pickleball courts.
Okay.
So it's a combination of both tennis and pickleball.
Because recreation still uses tennis for lessons and still has programming for children
Right.
related to tennis. Okay. The Peckman River stabilization project, that was supposed to be then a model for residents potentially to follow, but I don't know if we have ever seen what this bank stabilization project is. So it would be great for us to get a copy of the plans just so we can see what's going to happen there.
I can circulate a copy of what the plans were as of about a week ago.
Okay.
Those plans may change slightly based upon the conditions within the permit, but I can circulate to the council what those plans were as they continue to evolve.
Okay, great. I think that's it.
I just want to note for the record, the mayor came on at 7:18. So Mayor, you have any questions? Anyone else questions? Yes.
One item on my reverse page of community interest, their capstone program is active with all the departments, and a new element was added to the program. Staff and I had discussed adding the students, which will be next week, will be electing mayor and council members and running mock council meeting. There will also be department heads, the departments they've been working on, and Jennifer, Kevin, and Christine have been working on that. Suggested addition to the program, and they will be preparing resolutions that they see beneficial to their hometown. Okay. Forgot to bring that up to you. And that'll be on Thursday, Jennifer.
We actually pushed it.
What do I know? To the 12th. Jennifer, that was just basically anyone's in town.
We'll be there to get public comment.
Yeah, please send that to us.
Yeah, you will be there. Thank
I'll
you.
have them.
Oh, how about that?
There you go. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Okay, we're gonna go to council reports. Mr. Mayor, do you have a report?
I
Or do you
do.
want to make
Thank you.
appointment on the
Mr. Mayor.
schedule?
First, I just wanted to thank everybody for participating in the Memorial Day observance. It was a nice ceremony, and I'm appreciative for everybody who participated. And the only other item is I had the opportunity to visit the Verona Community Pool during opening weekend, and everything looked good. People were happy. They had a couple little hiccups to deal with, for sure. But I would like to thank all of our pool staff and Buildings and Grounds Community Services Department for the work in getting that opened right in time for that holiday weekend. And that's all I have, Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, there's an appointment for your library board of trustees for your alternate.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry I didn't put it before. It's my pleasure to appoint Laura Desai to the mayor's alternate to the library board.
Here.
I just wanted to also express my appreciation for the Memorial Day parade. Likewise, it was fortunate that we had to cancel the parade portion of it, but still were able to hold the ceremony. I know that there was a lot of preparation that all the community groups and students and band members and everybody else had put in for the parade. Appreciated very much the mayor's speech in the ceremony. It was very well done. And all of the scouts that were there, the choir, all of the service organizations and veterans. Thank you for participating, and congratulations to our Grand Marshal honoree, Doug Huber. Thank you for that. And also would like to say thank you to all of our department heads and employees and the town manager and everybody else for accommodating a visit from me today. This was my annual sort of Verona day where I stopped by each of our buildings, saw all of our departments as best I could find everybody, saw all the public works projects in progress. So it's a great way to learn a lot about what's going on in the town, and I really appreciate the opportunity to connect with everyone.
Thank you, Councilman McGrath.
I too want to thank our staff, and particularly Christine Gould, for planning Memorial Day. And I want to thank all of the participants, especially the students. The Multicultural Inclusion and Accessibility Advisory Committee met. And while I was not able to attend, I know they spent a lot of detail on what the mayor already mentioned, which is our annual Pride celebration and flag raising is on Saturday at 11 a.m. in Town Square. There will be many crafts for children and teens and anyone really of all ages. There will be ice cream and there will be music and there'll be a lot of smiles. So I hope the community can join us for this annual event. It's always very exciting. The mayor also mentioned, deputy mayor, excuse me, already mentioned the Valerie Fund. I have been supporting Darius Strong, which is a team for a young woman in Verona High School who is battling cancer. And she is in another round of radiation treatment. So I hope the Verona community will support the Valerie Fund. You can make a donation directly to them, to the walk, or support the Daria Strong team. I am a excited and proud pool member, and I did have a chance to finally go to the pool this weekend. I did see a few safety concerns with our basketball courts, and I want to thank the administration for being very proactive with addressing my concerns. And those are my remarks for now.
Thank you, Council. Councilwoman Holland?
Yes, thank you. So since our last meeting, I attended a meeting of the Verona Recreation Advisory Committee, where we discussed a number of ongoing matters, including recreation's financing, as well as pool membership numbers and upcoming fall programs, notably a new to recreation soccer in our community, which is very exciting for those with children in those age groups. We've had some ups and downs with the recreation soccer program, but you know, I'm very bullish about this new approach, and I do think that our new leadership in recreation is very excited about it as well. So that that you know kind of contributes to the positivity around the program. So I do recommend that parents enroll their children in this program if they have an interest in soccer, even a casual interest. I think it's like the appropriate level for recreation. There was some procedural questions raised at the Recreation Advisory Committee regarding quorum and the nature of the ordinance, which I will bring up in new business. Following on from recreation, I will just note that I also was at the pool opening weekend, and there were a number of residents there. They were very happy. It was a very positive experience, even with the limited window of opening on actual Memorial Day due to the rain. People were very pleased to be there, and it looks like leadership at the pool was handling any of the small issues that were coming up. So that's good, so long as we can keep that momentum going throughout the season. And I know that this week there's a lot of the various pool parties scheduled this week between Girl Scouts and the fourth graders and a number of other nonprofit organizations. So as long as we're on top of all of that, I think it makes for a really positive and productive pool season. All of my colleagues have remarked on Memorial Day. It was disappointing to not have the parade, but you can't control the weather. Otherwise, it was a beautiful ceremony, and I'm always moved to be joined by veterans and laying the wreath at the Vietnam Memorial is very meaningful for me. My father being a veteran of Vietnam, having been in active service at that time. I also had the pleasure of attending not one, not two, but many concerts put on by the Verona music department, notably the farewell to Mr. Morden. So I just wanted to use this opportunity to wish him well. It was a beautiful experience to see children from elementary school and middle school and high school all playing together. And possibly that's the only experience many of them will have playing in that large of a band. And they did a phenomenal job. And it's really a testament to Mr. Morden. So I wanted to congratulate him on that success and wish him well in his retirement. I too will be attending the various events this weekend, whether it be the Valerie Fund or the Pride celebration. And I'm just really looking forward to all the upcoming summer activities. So thank you so much. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Councilwoman. At this time, I'm going to open it up for public participation. Madam Clerk, can you please read the public participation rules?
Anyone from they approach. You state only of residence for the record. You're not required to provide your street address. However, if you know that these meetings channel and addresses surface, you have 4 minutes. So there'll be no cross dialogue. To speak has been heard. So may address your comments and or.
Now is the time for anyone from the public that would like to speak. Step up to this lectern over here and that microphone.
Can I stand in the middle?
You have
Because I get nervous behind
You
it.
have to speak in the microphone because then no one on Zoom will hear you. Sorry. Just your
Don't
name
think these work.
and city of Verona.
Good evening, everyone. I am Noelle Brogan. I live here in Verona. My business is here in Verona, and I've been around for over 55 years. My business is just up the street here, and it seems that I'm like a catch-all for everybody who has a question about anything going on in the town. And frankly, I don't like rumors, and I don't like gossip, and I don't respond to it, and that's why I'm here. I have 3 or 4 questions, and please just give me a simple answer so I can give it to the people who are pressing me. You know that big project up here with all the houses that the condos they're building and all. Is there a name for that? Because I hate to call it the project. Also, how many units is that? And what is the designation of the people who will be moving in? Like, what percentage will be X and what percentage will be Y and what percentage will be Z? You know, people come and they have all kinds of crazy ideas and answers, and I don't want to get involved in something that's just a rumor, because if you ask me, I want to be able to give a straight answer. And in my opinion, not a humble one, but my opinion, you go right to the top. And to me, this is the top. How many units are in there?
Okay, you ask all your questions and then after
That's it.
all public is done,
Oh,
we will answer every question that you ask.
okay. Number 1, how many units are there?
Next question.
Next question. How many units will be used for affordable housing? In what capacity? Is it low income?
Okay.
I mean, I'm asking
Are
a
your questions
specific.
only about that project?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and so then we will answer all those questions once public participation is over.
Okay.
Thank you.
It wasn't done.
Okay,
He must be Irish.
next question.
Next question. How is the income from that building going to affect or disaffect the people in our town regarding taxes? That's a serious issue here because there seems to be a lot of stuff going on and it's going to cost a lot of money. And everybody's asking, what do you think? What do you think? I can't think if I don't have an answer. Anyway, that's an end of me tonight. I'll come back again another time and pester you. Thank you.
Thank you. Public, we have no questions on Zoom, so I will close. Oh, hold on, one hand just went up. Raj,
Hi, good evening.
what's
This
your
is
last name?
Josh Jacobs from Verona. The audio was cutting out a little bit before, so I just wanted to, I don't know if this is the right time to speak about this, but I did want to speak in support of a stop sign on Cumberland and Claremont. I've witnessed a number of accidents and near accidents at that crosswalk. It is a crossing guard monitored crosswalk or attended crosswalk. And I think a stoplight or a stop sign on Cumberland and Claremont is really needed there. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobs.
Name when I didn't get
Jacobs.
it. Okay, thank you.
That's it. Seeing no one else, I'm going to close public participation and do my best to answer these questions in a short period of time. That they're calling that development the Verona Flats.
Flats?
Verona Flats. There's 95 affordable units in the development. That was part of our negotiation and settlement with Fair Share Housing. The township needed to supply X amount of affordable units throughout the township, and we came to that number for that piece of property. There's history because it was 2 pieces of property, but in the end, that's what we ended up with was 95 units.
That's the entire project?
It's the entire project, yes. There's 3 buildings, 2 buildings. There's a combination of 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms. It's all what we were required to put in. They will all be affordable, and it will be based on your income. A certain amount are low income, certain amount are low moderate income. So that's the simple answer is that it's 95 units, and it's all going to be affordable housing.
Yeah, but I asked you, what's the division of it?
I can't go back and forth. This is public, is just, we're giving you the answer. We will reach out to you. I will reach out. I will get all the answers and reach out to you. How many 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms? I don't have it offhand. Somewhere in this pad from the past meetings, it's there, but I will get back to you.
I also add, so just to go a little bit more into our strategy and why that building is there and why it's 100% affordable project. Normally when you have to meet your affordable housing requirements, most of the way that this is done is in buildings that are mixed, that have 15 to 20% affordable units and 80% market rate units. But the developers, when they build those buildings and they meet the commitment to build the affordable units, they're allowed to build over and above your zoning for the market rate units.
Okay.
So this originally, by having 95 affordable units in a single development, avoided hundreds of market rate developments that were proposed to take out basically 20 acres of trees on 2 separate parcels elsewhere in the township. So this was a very long-term project the township did to come up with a strategy to meet our affordable housing numbers. Going through the previous rounds of affordable housing, we used to have a surplus of affordable housing in this town. However, the method of calculation was changed by a court decision for this round. And as a result, the Hillwood Senior Citizens building, which previously covered the vast majority of our affordable housing requirements, the credits we got from that were reduced substantially as a matter of the process in this round. So we had to settle with Fair Share Housing and build buildings. This is one of 2. The other project would be the one that would be going up over at Afterglow, replacing the school that's there, and that is a mixed-use building. And if I remember correctly, that's over 200 units there, of which 200. Which
owns that?
We can't. I'm sorry. Due to the form of our public comment sections, we can only accept public comment and then make a council statement. So we spent a very long time, and there's an entire page on our website going through the history of our affordable housing negotiations. All of the documents are up there. Pretty much everything that we did, we put up there. But that was the process, was ultimately how do we protect the most open space in Verona? How do we end up with the lowest total unit count between all of the market rate units and the affordable units? As the deputy mayor said, there is a division between income types and unit sizes within that complex. There are low income, moderate income, et cetera. And then there is a division between 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. And those are all generally governed by court decision or statute. So the majority of this framework is not really something that we have the ability to change what the framework is. We have to figure out a way to meet our requirements within that framework. And this was the town's strategy for doing it. How is that building going to affect taxes? Obviously, that building being essentially subsidized through tax credits, et cetera, is not a building that is going to generate a ton of tax revenue for the town. And the township did have to buy and assemble the parcels of land that are underneath that building, but it is being developed by a third-party developer. So, it's sort of complicated how all the financial modeling of this goes together. If we had done a mixed-use building, those generally pay a very large pilot into the township. They're very high revenue, but then you end up with hundreds of units. And then you have all of the services you need to provide. You have an impact on your school system. So that's the takeaway here, was that in the round of settling this round of affordable housing, this was the strategy we came up with to minimize the overall impact on the town from a development standpoint, a school's impact standpoint, and a financial standpoint. And that project is going together rather quickly, and the building should be going online soon. So I thank you for coming in and expressing your concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman?
And I just want to add that, thousands of people are interested in moving in.
Yeah.
And at our last meeting, the, developer of the site, who will be managing it came in. And a third of those that are interested in moving into the building are Verona residents. So it just shows that there is an untapped need for affordable living, even within our own community from our own residents. But there's an application process and we can give you more information, or any resident can go to our website for more information, and there will be a leasing office that will be opening soon that we're going to widely publicize, so that anyone who wants to move in there can get all the information they need, and they have to complete an application, and then it'll be on first come, first serve, depending on how quickly they fill out a complete application. But we do anticipate that and hope that a lot of Verona residents will actually relocate there and be in a more affordable housing for their income level.
But only a third are Verona residents who are.
Well, we can't go
back and forth.
We can't go back and forth, but what I will clarify with my statement is that of those that are interested in moving in, so far, a third are Verona residents. But at the end of the day, it will depend. Whoever moves in there, it's really who will be able to complete the applications and fit the very precise income requirements and provide all of the backup that's required in order to move in.
Thank you.
So there's a lot, but we do appreciate public comment and questions on this project.
Thank you.
Briefly, may I also acknowledge the other?
I was gonna comment, but clearly you had more to say, so you can continue.
I will just acknowledge the gentleman's comment on the stop sign, and thank him for participating. We'll be discussing later in the meeting. I'm sorry.
Thanks. I just wanted to say thank you for coming to tonight's meeting. I know that it's stressful to speak in front of the council the way you did, but you spoke very eloquently. And I really appreciate you coming on behalf of others that have been speaking to you. And I just would love for you to encourage them to come forward and speak to us, or send us emails. There is very quick access through the website. You could just send a quick email to the council, all of the council members or individual council members, but we really appreciate the feedback. And so thank you for coming this evening. And as the stop sign will be addressed later in the meeting, I'm happy to hold my comments on that.
I'll continue with first and see my take there.
That's all of our comments. So next on the agenda is hearing adoption amendment ordinance. There are none. Proposed ordinances, there are none. Public comment on consent agenda. You have minutes.
No.
We do not have May 20th minutes, so we count. Resolution 1, accepting the award of the 2024 Clean Communities Grant. We have K2 is Clean Communities Grant, authorizing the insertion into the municipal budget of that Clean Communities Grant. Authorized contract with Integrated Technical Systems for relating to the parking kiosks that we will be purchasing. And then resolution 4 is our gun violence awareness resolution. How's that? And no executive session, so we took K5.
Yeah, we can pull K5. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, I'll move to the consent agenda.
And just real quick, we have license and permits. We have a 2024 first quarter raffle report from the municipal clerk's office. Okay. Mr. Mayor would like to move the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman McGrath. At this time, we will open public comment on the consent agenda. I don't think we need to read the public comment statement again. It's already been read. Anyone from the public? Seeing none, I will close public participation on the consent agenda. Any comments from council? Councilwoman McGrath?
Thank you. There's a Scribner's error in K4, the Gun Violence Awareness Day resolution. In the middle, it references 2007.
27.
And 7.4. But I just want to say about marking Gun Violence Awareness Day. I'm really glad that this council has codified into our ordinance on lighting the buildings that we will light our buildings in honor of Gun Violence Awareness Day this Friday in orange, which is the color of this living memorial that happens around the entire country to kind of mark this uniquely American experience of gun violence. I know for many of us, this is very personal. For many Verona residents, they are survivors of gun violence. It's impacted their lives. It's something that our officers live with for every day when they're out putting their lives in danger. There are domestic violence victims in our community that are suffering even more told because of gun violence. And of course, our children and educators spend an obscene amount of time practicing for an active shooter event. So I'm really glad that we're once again marking this event. I encourage all residents to wear orange on Friday, and at dusk or in the evening, come by our town buildings to see them lit up in honor of this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Else? Seeing comments, Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Yes.
Councilwoman,
Yes.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor,
Yes.
Mayor Tambor.
Yes. Madam Clerk, just note that the mic next to you keeps cutting in and out, just so you're aware.
We have no addendums. We're going to move on to.
I'm sorry. Resolution.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Resolution 6 through 9.
Moving along to new and unfinished business. I see we have our representative from H2M in the audience, so I am going to bring item number 4, the discussion, ordinance amending chapter 150 zoning of the township. The code of the township, specifically article 17, paragraph 17. 17, paragraph 11. The microphone is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I believe all of you have a copy of my memo and the draft ordinance, and I hope everyone's reviewed it. I'll make it quick. So basically, the master plan had recognized the need for having assisted living facilities in the township given the aging population, and at that time we had identified certain areas. The second thing, we had also given the vacancy of office buildings or the change in office buildings, recognize the need to have a co-working space and provide definition for the same. So this draft ordinance that I have prepared has been written recommending having a co-working space as a principal permitted use, and really to provide a clear definition, to also include a definition in the definition section. Regarding the assisted living facilities, these kind of facilities are essential, but it's also good planning practice to have lot area, building requirements, stipulations regarding buffers, etc., etc. So to that end, to provide clarity so that whoever interprets the zoning, there is no question. I've made an attempt to identify as a conditionally permitted use in the C2 zone. And as you go through the ordinance, the assisted living residence has an existing ordinance that has been updated to provide a little bit more clarity. And then as you move along in the permitted section, try to identify typically what the accessory uses are and should be a part of this. And then as we go, third section in conditional uses, that, assisted living facilities subject to the standards set forth in a new subsection 8.12. And as we go through 8.12, mentioned really the state licensing requirement. And then the other thing was that it's good planning practice to set forth a density requirement, if you will. In this case, it's number of beds. So, we did an analysis and came up with a 25. That's the maximum. And of course, given the building, the height requirements, it will be either 25 dwelling units or maybe lower than that, depending on the size. And in terms of area yard, it's important to provide buffering to neighbors, adequate parking. So we put in a minimum lot size of 4.5 acres, front yard setbacks to the neighbors, to put in also some sort of buffering requirements, and a maximum height, taking into consideration what any of the residential uses that are proximate to the two areas, the C2 zone areas, and also a minimum of 15% of all beds shall be set aside for very low and mod income. So that way, come round 4 or round 5, from our end, we have provided this, that we could avail of credits. And then finally, parking requirements. And I just wanted to point this out, that, the last sentence is basically the maximum number of employees during the peak period plus 0.5 parking spaces per unit. That one parking space was just language that should have been deleted, but didn't get deleted until I noticed 2 hours before this meeting. But I want to bring that to everyone's attention, that this was done. Basically, one thing we noticed while preparing the master plan was how obsolete are parking requirements in the town. You don't want to have and just over parking. So 0.5 parking spaces per unit is as per the RSI standards. So that's, it's accepted. Plus, it's important to provide the maximum number of employees during peak period. So if there are 15 employees, and 15 employees plus 0.5 of the beds is the thought process. And then finally, we have the master plan sets forth a vision of where certain things could go. Like, for example, the Bloomfield Avenue corridor is really for a mixed use downtown area. It just doesn't make sense having that in those kind of areas. However, we have sites which are in the C2 zone, as well as and a portion on Grove Street. So one of the things I realized too is it's Commerce Court and not Commerce Street. So the actual ordinance will have that rectified as well. So this is it from my end.
Okay, thank you. I had a question about Bloomfield Avenue and why, but you've already answered that question. Thank you. Does anybody else have questions, Councilwoman McGrath?
So when we had discussed this previously, I guess there are a lot of different, the C2 zone is in a lot of different places.
Correct.
So for assisted living facilities, though, the lots have to be a certain size. So did you do an analysis?
I did.
How many lots is actually?
Yeah, how many lots, or even if lots can be assembled together, because it just and just so that you know that there was a lot of research that went in. So we also reviewed other towns similar to Verona, what their ordinances are. So there was there was a lot of, that's my research right here in a simple matrix. But we also, every time, even when I came here last time, when I presented about people who had reached out regarding their property, the donor density. Similarly for this, also we we do analyze lots, and we also look at it from a point of view of where it would be feasible location, and nothing in this would preclude somebody, one may say, oh, there are some lots that are less than 4 acres, but this doesn't preclude anyone wanting to assemble those if should the need arise.
So 4 acres is really the
4.5, yes,
is the max.
Yes.
Okay, so just a way of process, this may be for town attorney or someone from our administrations or you. So this goes to the planning board
for consistency review
after the first reading.
Right.
And so residents who live abut to the C2 zone, will they all be notified, or is it really up to the resident to kind of be informed, keep up with what is being published in the paper, and that's how they're going to hear about this?
I would defer to our attorney.
This is our first big one.
Yeah, so this, and correct me if I'm wrong, our planner, this lines up with the master plan. So they do have to be aware, and this also is not relating to like one place.
Right.
As indicated, anywhere in the C2 zone,
Yep.
someone arguably, when I say anywhere, with the streets, frontages, because it's limited to certain streets, could assemble 4.5 acres, buy a bunch of different properties, houses, buildings, whatever happens to be there, and go ahead and try to go through this process. But they have to meet all the criteria because it is a conditional approval, which means they have to meet all the conditions.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they can't do it without then going to the board.
Okay.
And just so that you understand, that you, even as when I set forth the buffer requirements, it was taking into consideration what residential uses may abut any of those properties.
Right.
So that analysis did not include just lot analysis, but also included analysis of what's around these lots.
Yes, and that was just my observation and comment. Like, we have a great public information officer. This may be a good opportunity when it gets to the hearing at the planning board for maybe it to be blasted out a little bit, because as I look at the pink on our zoning map, which is the C2 zone, it's just there are a lot of residential areas. And I just think they should be understanding what's happening.
And just so that you also understand from perspective of land use planning too, that when something is in a C2 zone, that zone permits, like I'll list the uses it permits. It permits commercial and professional offices. It permits schools, family daycare centers. So, an assisted living facility is actually really a home for aging people. And we are very sensitive, of what's around it, what's the building height. We also analyze what's permitted in the C2 zone as well as zones around it. So whatever we do would not be out of character. So there was a lot of thought that went into that. A lot of thought went into how one would like to buffer these properties so that there is no impediment to enjoying people's backyards or front yards or side yards or what have you.
Yeah, thank you. And I will just close with saying, I think assisted living facilities are very much needed, and people want to age in place in Verona. So to add this as a conditional use is a smart move. So I do thank you for all of your analysis. And I think whatever analysis you have, I'm sure we want to see it. So,
oh, certainly.
Anyone else?
Make a very brief comment. This is one of the things we talked about a lot when we were bringing you on board was the C2 zone and the future of professional office, because that's probably one of the more interesting categories to look at right now with the large change in how we work. The example I give is you probably don't need to go and see your tax preparer in person anymore. You can meet with people over Zoom, but on the other hand, medical uses of offices are expanding. But I just see a lot of turnover in what professional office is, and we do have some fairly large professional office buildings. So adding co-working as a potential use and adding this as a potential use for it is sort of responsive to the changing needs of this particular land use. So I do look forward to seeing some of that analysis. But yes, this is relevant for people that live in these areas. I live in an area that's very near a lot of C2 professional office. it's interesting to read over. So I appreciate all the analysis and the work went into this, and look forward to seeing this before the planning board and kind of get ongoing discussion on it.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, any comments?
Yes, first, Sam, thank you for your hard work on this. I agree that the assisted living facility is a good use in our C2 zone, especially given the land requirements. The one thing that we should think about as a municipality moving forward is that if we do adopt this ordinance and we invite, especially the assisted living facility, into Verona through this, we do need to start thinking about the impact that might have on our emergency services. So I think it's an important thing that we have in Verona. People don't have a lot of options other than to move out if they require assisted living, or to bring in somebody into the home, which isn't always an ideal situation. But at the same time, as we move forward, or as somebody wants to build one of these facilities, we need to have a commitment to making sure that it's not too much of a burden on our already stretched emergency services. And that's all. Thank you.
Lastly, I'm just going to make a comment, and I don't think this is something because we have an affordable housing expert that we deal with. But the one thing I want to look into and make sure is that is there a difference between assisted living affordable units and our senior affordable units? Because I know in the next round they're only going to 30%, and we do have a surplus of senior assisted.
So we've reviewed this ordinance extensively together, and Sam did a terrific job. I credit her with doing the entire thing. I might have been able to pick one or two spots.
Okay.
That was one of the spots I tweaked with 15%. And the reason we use 15% is so we're consistent with our current ordinances. And more likely than not, as we understand the rules right now, you probably won't get credit maybe at this round or whatever with this. But that doesn't mean in our professional minds that you shouldn't, because the rules continually change. So if you just try to fit everything in the current rules, you might be losing out in the future when you get bonuses or it does count and stuff like that. So we thought it better to be consistent with our ordinance, apply the 15%, because these are more similar to the rentals than they are to purchases.
Yeah.
And this way, as long as we continue to do that, we'll always be in the mix and be in the best spot we can possibly be in as a township, in lieu of not including something like this. And then the rules change. We're like, why did we include it? You know, we're getting rich.
Thank you.
But I'm sorry, but just to reiterate what you said, the professionals at this time don't think we'll get credit the way the rules are for the next round as they were written.
That's my belief right now.
Right, but what in other words is, if we let this go and not have 15% and say 10 years down the line, we could get credits that we should have, oh gosh, that, and originally I put it at 10% based on the state statutes, but after this discussion, it just made sense to keep it consistent.
In previous rounds, you would have gotten credit.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons why, we kind of learned by looking at the history to say you would have gotten credit. They've now changed it where there isn't credit. If they flip it back, we want to make sure we're in the best possible spot. And it certainly doesn't hurt. I'll call it the township to have this. It's a great thing to have to help people, that need that kind of help.
So I just want to be clear with that. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks for coming early. Okay.
Okay. We're going to go to N1, public hearing, proposed project at Hillwood Terrace Park on 22 Fairview Avenue. Yes. Yeah, so.
Second.
Read that area. Site plan. The DA.
Let's start with an introduction.
I just have to, we have to. Good evening. My name is Candace Davis. I'm work with Boswell Engineering in their Chester office, representing Verona Township for a filing to NJDEP for an exemption from 7 NJAC 736 Green Acres program. The project relates to the proposed PFAS treatment facility on the Fairview Avenue well site. This is an ongoing project through the Township of Verona, and we are current with this public hearing. We're asking for, I will also present the project or the request for the exemption, as well as make availability for public comment as required for our submission to NJDEP. The interest for Verona in submitting for the exemption, there is an act that was adopted by NJDEP in July of 2023. This particular act allows municipalities to submit for an exemption from the standard Green Acres submittals when they're proposing projects on a site that is classified as a Green Acre site, as is the project currently under discussion. The site is located, if I step away from the podium for a second.
People on Zoom can't hear if you're thinking.
Okay. Currently on the site, Verona owns and operates the water supply system. The water supply system entails an existing well, piping. A treatment facility is already on the site as well, which is adjacent to public right-of-way, as can be seen from Hillwood Terrace. The well is accessible by an existing gravel access route within the site. The site is also primarily used by the public as a recreational and conservation site. So there are numerous trails that cross the site that are actively being used. It is also part of the Essex County trail system. So there is mapping that demonstrates that the county trails also cross through into the site. And then Verona Township itself also has accessory trails that coordinate with that trail system. So the site has historically also been used as a rope course at one time. There was also a time when it was available for target practice as well. But in the current state, it is primarily for recreation with the trail use and with hiking and walking, and mountain biking as well, because I've noticed that as well. The project, the requested exemption complies with a recently enacted act by NJDEP that came through in July of 2023. The act allows municipalities like Verona Township to submit for, as I mentioned, the exemption based on 6 conditions that are required to be satisfied. We have reviewed your project. Boswell Engineering has reviewed your project, And we have found that all conditions can be satisfied by Verona Township for the exemption submittal. The required conditions, I'll list them. I'll go through each one as required by public notice. The first condition that's required for any project under this current enacted act is that the municipality is required to own and operate the water utility and has a pre-existing well utilized for drinking water on the land. That is an affirmative condition that Verona has satisfied. Unfortunately, at this time, the Verona well is out of service due to some consideration with testing that had happened in 2021 due to high levels of PFAS, which is a new contaminant that EPA and DEP is now enforced their testing as of 2020. At that time, as the testing started, as required by DEP, Verona Township did find the contaminant levels for PFAS at a higher level than the maximum allowed by DEP, and they immediately proceeded to close the well and water supply from the site, and went forth with significant efforts, funding, and have already obtained a number of permits with regard to proposing and installing a new treatment system to treat this the PFAS contaminant. So in that regard, for condition 1, the municipality does own and operate the utility, and we satisfy that condition. For condition number 2, as I'd mentioned, if there's an exceedance or expected exceedance of maximum contaminant level for, among other things, PFOAS or PFAS, or such other contaminant established by the Department of Environmental Protection pursuant to the Safe Drinking Water Act. And as I just mentioned, unfortunately, Verona did test an exceeded level of PFAS. So, but as a result, we do fully comply with that particular condition. And we do have lab tests to support that that occurred in the past. Condition number 3 is required as a result of that exceedance. The municipal owned and operated water utility or authority shall expressly be permitted to install on the lands required improvements required to address this exceedance. That is what the project entails. There are design plans already prepared by Jacobs Engineering that are shall go out to bid at the as soon as all the permits have been obtained and Green Acres supports our request for the exemption. And those plans explicitly address the maximum contaminant level that was experienced with lab results, so that Verona Township will be in full compliance with the regulations. Item number 4, condition number 4, no other improvements shall be made on land except as deemed reasonable, necessary, and approved by the Department of Environmental Protection to address exceedance of the maximum contaminant level, and any such improvements shall be cited in a manner to minimize disturbance. This Verona Township and the design that's proposed shall comply with this particular condition. The project overall entails constructing a 25 by 40 foot building, approximately 16 feet tall, that will encompass the entire water treatment system, that will bring Verona Township into compliance with the the maximum, so that they are below the maximum contaminant level as required. If I step away from the podium for a second, the aerial building.
It will turn it.
I can also
I can turn it. Yeah, on the screen.
Tripod so that members of the public.
Okay, sure. Currently, mine, right?
So,
So the only improvements. Excuse me. You want to repeat it?
No, you're good.
Okay. So those are the only proposed disturbances that are considered for the site, and we comply with condition number 4. Condition number 5 requires that the additional use of lands and any improvements made pursuant to this section shall not substantially impact the use of lands for recreation or conservation purposes, including public access to the land. The existing building has been sited in an existing clearing on the site. That is the reason why it's located on that location, so that we can minimize any tree disturbances, to minimize disturbance of lands with regard to slopes close to hills, close to Hillwood Terrace, and then also eliminate any conflicts with underground pipes that are already on the site. The enjoyment with regard to the full site itself, the only disturbance is planned for this treatment system and the little portion of the drive access. No other portions of the site shall be disturbed. And so the full recreational use of the site and all the trails, as well as the access, gravel access, and parking area that's available currently shall remain. And then item number 6 relates to the acceptance of Verona Township for the submission of the exemption that the governing body of the municipality applies in writing to the commissioner, setting forth and demonstrating to the Department of Environmental Protection satisfaction that it meets the required criteria. The proposed project is excuse me, Verona Township entered into a consent order in February of 2024. So with NJDEP, as a result of their ongoing efforts to remediate the issue of the well, as we know, the well is currently offline, and Verona wishes to bring it back online. In doing so, this project will provide the treatment that's required to bring the contaminant levels for the PFAS below the required maximum allowed limits, and this project will then proceed with providing Verona with their water supply that they had in the past from this well system. The alternatives that were considered for the projects relate to the type of treatment that is available for PFAS treatment systems, as well as the location of the building. The type of treatment systems that's available for to treat this type of contaminant there's two typical types that will provide the 100% treatment. One is proposed anion exchange resin. That is what is proposed with the current project. And then the other type of treatment available is granulated activated carbon systems. So the reason why this proposed treatment system was selected included that the footprint of the building was allowed to be a smaller footprint than the granulated activated carbon type. And additionally, this type of system allows no contaminant waste streams to be accommodated from the system. So in lieu of that, this type of anion exchange resin, the media is pre-washed prior to coming onto the site, and then it is rinsed again on the site, and that rinsing water then will be discharged into the proposed tank that is also part of the project, and then can easily be hauled away to the wastewater treatment plant as a supported treatment process for this project. Then any spent resin, it's a resin media that's included in the system. Anything that's spent or is no longer functional can be removed easily with a truck, slurry truck, and then hauled to an approved disposal facility. So the reason, again, those are some of the reasons why this particular treatment process was chosen. The treatment building location, they looked at the siting for the existing treatment system and the building that's currently on the site. Unfortunately, if we were to propose move that building onto that, closer to that location, there would be fairly significant trees that would need to come down, as well as significant grading and walls to provide a flat pad for the system. There's also a number of water supply lines site that are existing that go up to the tank to the top of the hill, and those lines would also impede on the project for locating the building closer to the existing treatment system building. And finally, by locating the building on top of the hill, it provides a gravity discharge from that building to the next building for treatment. So that eliminates the need for an additional pump. So at this time, if there's any, I'd like to open the public hearing to the public, so that but we can provide some, if there's any comments or anybody has any questions.
Let's start first. Does the council have any questions? Thanks. Councilman.
I don't have a question, but I did want to make a comment. Is that appropriate at this time? Okay. So I just wanted to just to say thank you for your presentation. I know it's a lot to get through this evening, but I do think it's really important. I really appreciate you taking the time to, to make the point that, this is property that already has this use existing on it, right? We've already got the wells on it. This is located right across from the high school on Fairview Avenue. We have the existing well on it. In order to remediate the contamination in the wells, we need to construct this project. It's an unfunded Green Acres project. Correct. So we're not receiving any funding for the recreational uses or the Green Acres property from the state. And as you said, which I thought was really helpful, is that this isn't going to impact any of the recreational uses currently on the property. Okay. So like the trail usage and other recreational activities that residents may enjoy there aren't going to be affected by this project that's intended to provide them clean water. That's correct. And that it would be screened from the roadway and ostensibly from like the high school as well. So there would be adequate screening associated with it. That's correct. And that there was legislation as well. I thought it was really helpful that you referenced that there's legislation that allows just this type of public hearing and procedure to take place before the council this evening. So overall, I really just want to thank you for coming tonight. And I thought that the board was very helpful. I'm not sure if it was posted on the website. So if there are residents that wanted to take pictures, that it is a public document.
Yeah.
Oh, it is on the website. Sorry. I missed it. But thank you so much. I thought it was really helpful. And those were a couple of key points that really resonated with me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Roman.
Just to add also for the public that there was a fairly detailed technical presentation given by Jacobs Engineering. Date I got on it was May 15th of 2023. I did search some of their presentation materials were on the Township website as well, basically showing the layouts of the treatment systems, the actual equipment, the sizes of the buildings, and so on. Looking at what our engineers have put together, it is pretty obvious that they've tried to manage footprint in these because obviously we don't want to overbuild. The other risk that we're looking at in the long term is this is an emerging contaminant, and there are other emerging contaminants that we may have in the future. Additional filtering requirements, or we may have to do put other types of media in. So there is a little bit of future planning that goes into this as well in the event that we have to put any additional process into these wells in the long term. So it's just a very complicated area of regulation, and any kind of infrastructure that we build, we look at all of the competing priorities and all the concerns that we have and try and come up with something that has the least impact on the public, that solves the problem, that puts it in at a reasonable cost. And I very much appreciate you coming and presenting this evening as to the specifics as to why this land is landing right where it is and the dimensions and so on for the building. So thank you very much for your
I too want to thank you for your clarity on this, Ms. Davis. I've walked the area. I do think I'm happy that we're seeing buffer put in there, but from Fairview Avenue, it's pretty wooded going up to there. So it is a pretty good location in my mind for it, as far as having it off in the woods and not really being an eyesore to anybody. So thank you very much. And Councilwoman McGrath, anything? No?
It was excellent presentation. Thank you. And thank you for the visuals. It really helps to understand, exactly where it's going to be placed and how it's going to be buffered. So I appreciate the hard work that went into it. Thank you. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor, anything or?
No, just reflect everybody else's comments and thank you for your presentation. It's a project that we must do. So I appreciate having a good justification and a good explanation to the public.
Thank you. Okay, so at this time, yes, I will open up for public comments or questions on this. Since we had a bunch of people come in, Clerk, can you please read the public comment statement?
Wishing particular matter, attending via
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Anyone from the public would like to speak? Now is the time. Ms. Davis, you're going to have to read that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Melissa Dett, and I'm a resident of Verona. I'm attending tonight's evening regarding the proposed Fairview Avenue Well Facility Treatment Project with some comments, concerns, and questions. To set the scene for me being here, we live in the second to last house on Crest Hill Road. It's adjacent to this Hillwood Park, Green Acres. We've lived in the house for 10 years and are very happy with our 2 kids. So we love our neighbors on the street and feel that we have found a sweet little community. My 3- and 6-year-old are often out riding their bikes and scooters outside and playing with groups of neighbors. It's my house. It's like right on your map right there. So all of this activity takes place just yards away from the Fairview Avenue well manhole cover that's accessed from Crest Hill Road. I became aware of this public hearing through a large sign that was installed on Hillwood Avenue. I saw them install it from my front bay window of our house and investigated it once it was up. Since we're right next door, we will be affected both by the construction and the resulting clean water. I thought I should attend tonight's meeting. In preparation, I began reading the NJAC 736 Green Acres program mentioned in this notice, but wasn't able to connect the dots from this code to my questions. So I thank you very much. You answered some of my questions that I have. I did just want to pose them for today, and then I'll leave them with you. So one of the questions from your talk today is that when you vote to have the land taken out of the Green Acres project, does the land go back in after the project is done? My second question is, why do you need to access the Green Acres today when bids have not been submitted? This is me not knowing how bids work, so that's my fault. But can these vendors do everything from Fairview Avenue? And you sort of touched upon that. But as a resident, I would much rather have a building on Fairview Avenue than accessing some of the trees in my backyard. Questions that I have about this, which were not touched upon, is the length of the time for construction on the project. This would affect my family, as we are outside a lot. What are the hours of the day the work will take place? I did go through the May 15th meeting notes. I was unable to attend. So some of these I didn't receive the response to there, and I apologize if they were there and I missed them. Will there be an external, oh, no, you answered that. Oh, is the structure temporary? What happens after we have great drinking water again? What is, and this is a big one that I talked to my neighbors about, what is the noise that will be emitted from the work, and what is the noise that's going to be emitted by the filters? What is the access needed from the Verona or the Crest Hill Road manhole? How many trees will be removed? Sort of answered that. That was answered. And that was answered. So those are my, I guess, 8 questions that I have. Thank you so much. I appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Lawrence, a resident of Verona. I serve on the board of the Hilltop Conservancy, and as you know, the Hilltop Reservation is kind of above this area. But my question is any of this facility going to be on what is currently the ropes course? And if so, will it mean that the ropes course will be cleaned up, because it's kind of derelict right now, and there's like graffiti on some of the wooden objects that are still there from when it was a ropes course? So that's my question.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Seeing no one on Zoom, so I will close public participation and try to go through some of the questions. We will definitely need your expertise again.
So I will attempt to, this is Candace Davis from Boswell Engineering again. I will attempt to answer some of the questions that the public has presented. With regard to the land. So the project is proposed immediately adjacent to the well, the current well, with that is the focus of the construction activities.
So will the land be removed from Green Acres?
So
it'll still remain Green Acres, but this just ends up being on the Green Acres.
Yeah, so typically in previous to the act that was enacted recently, the Green Acres program would have required that we dispose of all the lands that we are proposing the project on, the lands and also some of the existing features. And what that entails is that land or that delineation would be taken out of the Green Acre site, and then we'd have to provide a compensation at a 5-to-1 ratio or so at another location, and or provide monies with it based on a market value accepted by a DEP. So in lieu of that particular submission, we are asking Verona Township will ask for an exemption from that particular statute, and that exemption is currently allowed now under the current an act that was enacted last year.
Okay, and then one of the questions was, why are we taking the Green Acres land today rather than waiting? It's because we have to get approval to put it here in order to move forward. So they had to give us the okay to do this before we move forward. So that's why we had to get it taken up. And there's another question. Hours of work, I believe, in Verona construction is 7 to 7. But most likely, I seriously doubt I don't see any contractors working a 12-hour day. So they may start generally something like this. You could probably see them coming in, 7:30, 8 o'clock, and then out by 5. That's typical, but they are allowed 7 to 7. And then there's the question, any access from Crest Hill, or can they access, most of it is, I'm going to guess, coming up Hillwood Terrace?
Yeah,
and
well, the access
there's drive
off of that Hillwood.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there will be no access from Crestview. I don't know about the manhole. Did they have it? Was there a reason why someone was accessing the manhole at the end of Crestview? They were probably just checking it just for.
It was like the. The valves are functional.
The mic, sorry.
I believe he said that it was part of the preliminary investigation and that they were checking valves.
I believe that was all of the 8 questions.
No check.
And then what?
And there was reference to
And then-
noise ordinance
The noise.
as well.
Structure temporary.
Yes, that would be posed to you. The noise of this filtration system when it's running.
So the noise levels, I'm unsure of that level. I'd have to look into that. That's something that Jacobs Engineering would be better versed than I.
Okay.
With regard to the structure being temporary, will not be temporary. It's intended to be a metal building at the discretion and color and scheme of at the discretion of Verona Township.
And it will be there for
Yes.
basically forever until the problem's not going to go.
I do have a schematic of the treatment process that will be installed if you'd like to take a look, but that has not been presented on Zoom.
And then to Mr. Lawrence's questions about the road course and can the area be cleaned up? I would think that falls probably under the Hilltop Conservancy, or that road course was part of the county. I'm not sure of the background of that course, so maybe we'll look into that and hopefully get back with an answer to you. We probably have your contact for the Conservancy. Are there any other of those 8 questions that we did not get to? We got it all.
I believe the length of time of construction was another question. Is there an estimate?
Yes, start.
It's to 18.
It's not on the.
6. If we get closer, we will put something out. Town will definitely inform.
Do you want to?
For the time, speaking for how we get where we are now, we're having a system online.
Yeah.
She needs a transcript.
So the The approximate construction schedule is going to be anywhere from 12 to 18 months from start of construction to completion of construction. The construction cannot start until we're out to bid, and we cannot go out to bid until we've completed this exemption process. So we're hoping that we can put this out to bid within the next 3 months. That means that we're aiming on awarding a contract and submitting it to the state for approval in approximately midsummer timeframe. And that means that we may actually get construction started another 2 to 3 months after that. But that from that point, it'll probably take 12 to 18 months to complete construction.
Deputy Mayor, if I may, so
Go ahead. Thank you.
clerk is able to document the meeting correctly.
Yes.
Anyone from the audience that's asking a question has to go to the mic. She can't pick that up for the record.
Yeah, unfortunately, we already closed public participation, so I'm sorry. There will be another one at the.
And Deputy Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
Also on the question relative to noise, 2 engineering firms, Jacobs Engineering is working on the entire design. I'll get an answer for that. That's why the facility's in the building. And I will get an answer for residents on it.
Thank you, Mr. Yargo. Okay. I believe we're all good. We'll
I just wanted to also let the public and as well as the council know that the public may still provide written comments to Mr. O'Sullivan for the next 2 weeks, as long as you also please submit copies to DEP as well, because the public comment period extends until June 18th. So we will we hold on the submission prior until that time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Wolfler, you can reach out.
thank you, Ms. Davis.
Sure.
Appreciate your time.
So can I just clarification? So after the 2 week submission period, then what are the procedural steps for the council? Thank you. I'm sorry.
So the 2 week is a public comment period. So we will compile all the comments that have been generated tonight, as well as during that time, and even previously that may have come through, as well as a transcript. So we'll submit a full submittal to NJDEP State Commissioner for the on behalf of Verona Township, stating that we wish to apply for an exemption from NJAC 736 Green Acres program pursuant to the act that has been adopted as of last year, based on our confidence that all of the conditions of the act are met by Verona Township. And once that submission has been made, the state commissioner has 45 days to review the project and respond in a manner of comments or additional questioning prior to a final decision.
Great, thank you.
You're moving along. N2 of our agenda, an ordinance to amend the code of the Township of Verona, Chapter 140, vehicles and traffic. We have little sections in this pertaining to different areas of ours. Section 1 is Chapter 140, vehicles and traffic. Stop intersections is hereby amended to add the following: the intersection of Claremont Avenue and Cumberland Avenue. Claremont Avenue westbound stop sign. Basically, that's at the bottom coming down Claremont when you get to Cumberland Avenue. This section is, we had a engineering report. Section 2, no parking. The code of the Township of Verona is hereby amended to add the following: Park Avenue, the west side, from either section of Sunset Avenue, continuing 60 feet. Park Avenue west from the north corner of Porcello Lane, continuing 50 feet north. That's at both entrances of Verona Park. And then Montrose Avenue, the west side, from the north corner of Hill Street, continuing 50 feet north. Hill Street is the first right-hand turn on Montrose as you come off of Bloomfield Avenue. And then section 3 of this, no parking certain hours on Bloomfield Avenue north side, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. from 30 feet west of Derwent Avenue, continuing west for 85 feet. That is the right side of Bloomfield Avenue at the end of where Claremont Avenue intersects with Bloomfield Avenue. So, moving forward with this, my comments on this is just for discussion. The bottom of Claremont Avenue is what our in public participation, Mr. Jacobs asked about. I have seen this corner. Actually, I was standing on the corner one day with the mayor and his dog, and there was an accident. And it was just, I did believe it was just last year. This is a corner that I think does need this stop sign. So I was glad we're moving this forward. I do agree with both of the other areas for no parking. I also, at this time, would like to add something to this. Being that we're talking about the corner of Claremont Avenue and Cumberland, on the opposite side, on the south side of Cumberland, behind the building on Bloomfield Avenue there, basically from the east corner of Cumberland, going up eastbound, another 50 feet of no parking, because when you come off of Bloomfield Avenue, make a right up Claremont, sometimes there's cars parked right on that corner. So if we're looking at this, I don't know, do we have to do an evaluation? Does our engineer have to look at that?
I have to give it to the.
Okay, before we can put it on this. So I'm wondering if
it's not for introduction, so it's for discussion. I'll send your recommendations to the chief.
Okay.
Because you need the police department comments and engineering.
Okay. I mean, if it's going to delay this 2 or 3 months, then I would be happy moving forward this and add it to an ordinance later on.
I got it.
So any other comments from council on this discussion? Councilwoman McGrath?
Yeah, thank you. First question is for Joe. Normally the chief comes in and explains, but he couldn't make it tonight?
No.
Okay.
And this has been reviewed by the Traffic Safety Committee. Recommendations come in through the Traffic Safety Committee, then the chief works on them. I believe Kevin and the chief also were in the field, correct?
Oh, that's correct, yes. Okay,
so what you have in front of you under new business is literally the recommendations from the Traffic Safety Committee to the police department reviews, and those reviews have happened. So unless there are specific questions about locations in the ordinance for the chief, that he has recommended.
Okay.
Those.
I will say, as I sit on the Traffic and Safety Committee, that was going to be my comment, that this has been a great discussion, and I know this was timed to be after the Derwent construction, so that that had to be complete before they felt comfortable putting this stop sign in, and the Traffic and Safety Committee is in full support of putting in the stop sign. So certainly it's something I feel comfortable moving forward on.
And to answer the deputy mayor's question, not to slow down your process, your normal process, you could, if you desire to move it for introduction, that's a decision you make, or it would go from here to your next meeting for introduction. The question on adding to this would have to go to the process, but you could always amend an ordinance later, as you do. So living document. Stop signs and traffic recommendations come in on a regular basis.
First, thank you I just want to, comment on that. I think our process is so that, especially the residents on Park Avenue in Montrose, they have a chance to see this and comment before introduction. So I think it's great we talked about it in public and that the deputy mayor went through it so comprehensively. And maybe we'll get more comments and support or things that maybe we didn't consider, in particular in that middle section too.
So comments that you made, we'll get to the chief.
Mr. Mayor.
I just wanted to make a couple comments. I am in favor of all of these items, especially the stop sign at Claremont and Cumberland. As an EMS member, I've been to several accidents there. On the other items, as far as putting yellow curbs, so not allowing parking, the one thing we have to think about is enforcement. So we already have some areas on Park Avenue near the park by Portello Lane that are already, because of their distance to their yellow curbed or whatever, or too close to a crosswalk or too close to a stop sign or whatever. I walk by there almost every weekend, at least twice a weekend. So as we add this and we put signage up and we let people know, we really need to start enforcing this, because people that visit the park, especially folks out of town, because of the minimal parking provided by the county, generally make parking spaces wherever it seems to be convenient for them. So some aggressive enforcement would be called for, especially along Park Avenue. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So we will just move this forward. The chief wants to review it. We can add to this Claremont Avenue. I think or maybe it has to go towards the Traffic and Safety Committee first also. But we can put it on a future ordinance. Any other comments on this? Reading. Next one.
Introduction at the next meeting, and then any comments relative to another ordinance after this one is adopted.
Yeah.
You can do that.
Okay, and last on the new and unfinished business, a discussion on municipal election expenses. Clark went through her presentation in our last meeting, was it? Does anybody have any comments? Councilwoman?
Sure. Well, what I heard last time at the meeting, there were some members of the council that had questions for our municipal clerk about consolidating the election districts as a way of reducing expenses. So I want to acknowledge that Ms. Kiernan followed up with the county, and they sent a very brief but succinct email that said that any consolidation of election districts really would not result in any cost savings. Is that correct, Ms. Kiernan? Am I summarizing that correctly?
Yes. Right. Thank you.
So, I think from my perspective, clearly, it's for us, $75,000 is a significant amount of money to be spending every 2 years on an election, when we can just hold these elections in November, basically for free, because we're already holding elections. We've received a lot of feedback from the public, both to all of us in writing, and I want to thank those residents who have reached out. They all have been in support of moving the election, and personally I've spoken to a lot of residents, and they really view this kind of as a no-brainer. I think the opportunity, though, given the fact that we don't have regular newspaper coverage and it's hard to get information out, I think this is a big change. It's a 10-year lock-in. It also extends all of our terms if we were to do it as part of the transition for 6 months. I think, the best course of action is to put this as a non-binding referendum in November when we have a presidential election with really high turnout. And it's a great way to kind of publicize for our residents, hey, times have changed, the cost structure has changed, the machines have changed. We can have this election in November. It's your election. When would you like it? And obviously it's a non-binding referendum. So, in theory, the council can choose a different decision. But I think a lot of this lines up so beautifully, we're odd number of years that lines up with the state elections, not the federal. We're already voting on Board of Ed in November. And let's be honest, these elections put a huge strain on our school system. And this would be something that we could do for the schools to get an election day out of the schools, which is very, very disruptive for them. And this year they've even moved to taking days off, both for the primary tomorrow and for the November election. So, you know, I would love to hear my colleagues' comments on the idea of doing a non-binding referendum in November, a decision which we do need to come to in July. Thank you.
Else? I will make a couple comments. I just when it comes to I'm kind of on the fence on this. I realize it's a lot of money, and it seems like with the emails that we received, that was the only thing that people were really talking about in the email as to why we should move it. I do appreciate the May elections because they really do occur as a nonpartisan election. If we move to November, you can't deny that there is a partisan part of the election, and I think our town council is nonpartisan. So I just think that that's my number one reason for leaning towards keeping it in May. You know, to keep that, maybe it's worth $75,000. I know we received the email very, very brief as to whether it would save money or not. I mean, I would like to also see the number of people that actually show up on election day, as opposed to how many are voting early, mail-in ballots and such, because I just feel that there's so many less people that show up on election days that you can combine districts and have half as many. And I think if we have, instead of 11 districts, 6 districts, we can combine them into, say, community center. We'll be having a new public safety building. You can have them there. I think there's creative ways we can do that. As far as, you know, a non-binding referendum, it would be in November. So, you know, I just think that again, back to my first point, I think that then it would become a partisan issue. And I just don't like seeing that in Verona. But I am open. If it goes to November, fine. I would be fine with it. I just want to voice an opinion that I also have gotten from many of my constituents that don't think that a November election for the town council is a good thing. But I have had several people say the opposite too. So fine. Comments on that, Councilman Roman?
Thank you. I'm very much in alignment with the deputy mayor's opinions on this. I have consistently fiercely defended the nonpartisan nature of the Verona Township Council, and I really do like the concept of this being a standalone election. Mostly thinking about the campaign season itself. It's a time when we spend talking a lot about issues that are specific to the Township of Verona. And I feel like there's a lot of really good discussions that happen during these elections that are worthwhile for keeping this standalone and letting us, you know, engage with our residents and really have the focus be on what we do for them as a council and what their needs are. I am, you know, money is a concern. It is $75,000 every 2 years, but that's the only argument I have really heard. The concept of not saving money by consolidating districts does not make a lot of sense to me. You know, we heard the argument that there's staffing per district and there are people assigned to each district. So again, you know, if you consolidate these districts down by nature, that should go down. So I think that needs a little better documentation and discussion if that really is the answer that we're looking at here. I think that with the change in voting types, that it does make a lot of sense to try and look at the actual number of people that show up and vote in person and separate and staff accordingly. I do think that there can be some more efficiency gain there if we are really looking to save cost, but I don't think that this is something that's broken. I really don't. And, you know, having been through a number of these election seasons, I think that we just get a really good quality discussion. And, you know, my inclination is to leave this sort of as is. So,
Councilman Holland, you're done.
Thank you. So I believe the councilwoman's question was, you know, more about going out for a non-binding referendum to ask the voters what their preference is. So I've heard arguments, both sides of it, but It's $75,000 approximately for the most recent election. That's not to say that it won't continue to increase in the future. And I think it would be worthwhile to have residents in the November election to provide their feedback. With regard to the nonpartisan nature of the election, I mean, the Board of Ed is nonpartisan as well, and they are on the November ballot. So I don't think that changes the content of our discussion or the form of government or the fact that we are a nonpartisan governing body. I just think it provides an opportunity for the voters to have a single experience, and it relieves some pressure on the school districts. But I can go either way. I mean, I knocked on a tremendous amount of doors when I was elected in 2021, and I had a number of discussions with residents about all sorts of topics, including some which were discussed tonight. And I'm happy to do that again this spring, and we can be talking about the affordable housing regulations that will be going into effect this spring. And I think that will be a big topic of discussion. I'm really looking forward to having those discussions with our residents. I think it's a great opportunity, but I think I can equally have a great opportunity for conversations with residents and constituents leading to a November election. And I'm happy to do that work either way. So ultimately, if the question is, do we put this to the voters in November as a non-binding referendum? I think that's an easy enough answer, is that I would be willing to have a non-binding referendum on the ballot and just hear from the voters. We don't get a tremendous amount of public comment at our meetings, and we each have our own networks of individuals that we speak to, but getting that feedback, that data from an actual ballot would be tremendously useful. And if the voters share the concerns that like they want that May election, then that means that's money well spent. But if the voters say that they would prefer a November ballot, well, then that gives us our marching orders. And I think that that's really worthwhile information to receive. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, thank you. I have several comments, and I really agree, I think, with all of my council members in one way or another. I'm very interested in the cost savings part of this, but the thing that we need to also understand is that the first time that we don't include this in the budget, that's when we see the savings from it. After that, when our budget moves forward, then we don't necessarily see the same level of savings every 2 years. I do share the concern of the deputy mayor as far as the consequence of making our elections more partisan. I think one of the joys of having the May election is that our elections are very much focused on Verona and Verona only, and it does take out partisan influence. I have been observing a far more partisan influence in the town already, and it's something that a lot of people that have reached out to me very concerned about that happening, when it really, there isn't a necessarily Republican way or a Democrat way to fix a pothole, as they say. But the reality of it is that the May election does have the ability to focus the election as looking at the needs of our municipality only. The other, during the last meeting, we had some comments about increasing voter turnout. I am very much in favor of increasing voter turnout. The question that we have to ask is that if we were to move the election for the sake of increasing voter turnout, would we be simply increasing voter turnout and just more people voting, which is great, but the reality of it is, if we want to have the best choices of who is going to serve on our councils in the future, we should really be advocating for an increased informed electorate. So more people voting. So the people who tend to vote in May self-select because they're interested in local issues. Whereas you do have, you don't necessarily have that much in November. Know for a fact, a lot of people around school board election time have no idea what the positions of the school board members are. They simply vote because it's on the ballot. And that's a concern. And that makes your ballot positioning a lot more significant. So whoever has the first column tends to get more votes as a statistical anomaly, right? So that's a bit of a concern. Our May voters tend to be very informed on local issues because that's all we're talking about. one interesting thing, and I think it was our township clerk who brought this up in our last meeting that stuck with me a little bit, is the fact that the ballot for the council would be on the back of the ballot for whether it's assembly or governor, senate, et cetera. And then the school board would go below. One of the phenomena that happens when you have long ballots is voter fatigue. People kind of stop voting at the voting booth, and also people don't turn over the ballot and vote on the back. So I have a concern about that if we're trying to deal with voter fatigue. So one of the things that I've started to look at, and frankly, I wasn't expecting such an immediate secondary discussion on this topic because it's not really as urgent as an issue, being that the next election's next year. But one of the data analysis pieces I will be doing is trying to compare the number of people who voted in the school board elections with the number of people who voted in the general elections when they are on the same years. And the reason being is that I really would like to answer the question. I don't have a hypothesis on this, but from what people tell me, or from what just political scientists tend to theorize, is that you have this voter fatigue. So I would like to see if the number of people voting kind of drops off at that point. So that's another question I would like to answer. I'm also concerned that putting us on the ballot would actually put the Board of Ed down more, and now you have fewer people potentially with that voter fatigue, that ballot fatigue, voting in the Board of Ed election. So there's a consequence on the Board of Ed. Of course, the positive consequence on the Board of Ed is that we get the one election out of their buildings. I did hear, and I was very concerned in the last council meeting when the term disenfranchisement was used in order to characterize the existence of our May elections. And I do want to make it very clear to the public and to my fellow council members that no disenfranchisement occurs. By having a May election, the election is open to every voter. Every voter gets a sample ballot. Every voter can vote not only in person, but by mail. There's no disenfranchisement. In fact, we're offering people more opportunities to vote rather than fewer. So if they happen to miss an election in, say, the general election and don't have an absentee vote by mail ballot, they still have the opportunity to vote in this one. So disenfranchisement is not a word that we should be using. But that being said, I am interested in pursuing this topic and discussing it more and really analyzing it more. And it's something that I hope potentially having somebody from the County Division of Elections join us at a council meeting to discuss these options and so on. The other things I would like to do is reach out to our nonpartisan fellow towns, ones that have the elections in November and ones that are maintaining the elections in May, to get their thoughts as well, because they may be seeing something that we have missed. As far as a referendum goes, I'm not opposed to the idea of a referendum. I am very concerned about having it in November for a couple of reasons. The first being is that we're kind of rushing, and we're not really, if we have to have this done by July, we're not really able to suss out all of the issues and do the analysis we need to do and really start thinking about what this looks like in order to have some voter education out there. The second piece of it is if we have a referendum on this, which I think we don't necessarily have to do, it's not required, and having a non-binding referendum, number one, is very concerning to me to put something out to the public and then potentially not take the suggestions. But if we do a non-binding referendum, my recommendation is that we would do this in the May election, so that we get the opinions of the people who vote in the council elections on whether they would want to see the election move to November or not. Because it's those folks, you have a lot of people that are very interested in holding on to these elections in May. And if the folks that would vote in May are more likely to be okay moving that to November, that would be more compelling to me as data collection and as will of the Verona voter than if we we're asking people who may not vote in May, but vote in November, if they would like to see the elections moved, because the almost certain answer would be, well, yes, I want to see them moved because I tend to vote in November and not May. So I'd really would find it more compelling and more interesting to hear from the people who traditionally vote in May. And that election, of course, is open to anybody in town, not just people who've traditionally voted there. And then maybe another way of increasing voter turnout. That being said, I don't necessarily think we have to wait until next May to make a decision on this one way or another. So my basic comment here is that I do not consider this an urgent issue to deal with in a referendum in November. And it's something that we should very carefully study and very carefully move forward on. And that looking at this simply as a cost savings mechanism is short-sighted when there's so many other very serious consequences of moving the election that could be positive or negative for our town. We could sit down and I'm sure find several other ways to cut $70,000 from the budget and maintain this, which is another option we certainly have as well. So those are my thoughts. I'm looking at my notes and just to check if I missed anything, but that's the conclusion of my comments on this item. I will have another item for new business, Deputy Mayor, when this discussion is concluded.
Right. Two things. I would like to defer to our municipal clerk. She just heard a lot of information from various members of the council. Would you like to provide us any additional information? Especially a lot of my colleagues are focusing on the consolidation of districts, but this is highly regulated by law and is not, we don't have the ability to go from, we're at 11 districts currently down to something as radical as 6, correct? I mean, can you just discuss this a little bit?
Could we have Mrs. Kiernan move to the lectern, please, because her mic barely works.
Okay.
All right, so I was going to address to consolidate districts. We would need to provide information to the county for their review to determine if it's required. After I think the turnout in the last 2 general elections, the last 2 November elections, and some other things which can be done. But when you consolidate districts, the more machines that you have in a district, the more poll workers you need. So there is a statute, and so if you have 2 voting machines, you need 2 additional members for the district board as poll workers, each from a different party. So just in terms of, I mean, you have to really crunch the numbers to see if there's a cost savings or not.
And then to do a referendum not in November, is there a cost to the?
They don't. I'm going to put an email out to the county clerk because I don't think you can do a referendum in a May election, in a nonpartisan election.
And just to clarify, the May election and the way they've structured the statute, we would not be able to do early voting, which is not something that it's just so cost prohibitive. Early voting is something.
Early voting falls on the municipality.
Yes, but pay the full cost.
Correct. And when I gave my presentation, I did preface it with the timing was an ordinance, and taking that because that would take the most time. I'd have to confer with the state division of elections, as well as with the attorney present to determine if that would be a resolution or an ordinance to request a question on a November ballot, because we've done it both. So I think it might depend. We'd have to look into that more.
Okay.
I really don't have a lot of questions like I would want to research before I answer questions.
I do not.
I just want to say just one response to the partisanship as someone who just recently ran for re-election. You know, I knocked on hundreds, if not over 1,000, or 1,500 doors in preparation for my reelection. I had wonderful conversations with residents. What I find through, my 5 years of experience doing this is that residents really, the majority of residents are really voting on relationships. And they're voting really on, do they know you? Do other people know you? Can they vouch for you? And in Verona, that's one of the great things about our nonpartisan government. But there is a small subset of voters that have a partisan lens on everything. So it doesn't matter if you have the election in May or November. And I have been asked directly, a few times, what party are you? And I would defer and say, no, we have nonpartisan government. I use the line, I don't know who said it. There's nothing partisan about picking up the garbage or filling a pothole. And they're like, I understand that. What party are you? And I knew when I answered that question, I was losing some votes and I was gaining some votes, and it was all going to wash out in the end. So there's that level of partisanship is just, unfortunately, for some people, very, very important. It happens in May. And if we move to November, it will happen in November. And one final thing with this idea of doing a non-binding referendum, I think unlike what we did with the open space tax fund, where we took a position and said, we want you to vote yes, so that we can increase the tax for the open space trust fund, I think we would approach something like this very neutrally. I liked all the ideas raised by my colleagues. We could explain the history. Why are we voting in May? What is happening now? And then what are some pros and cons of moving? And we can put all that information out there as we've done some research and tap into it. But again, trust the voters to make the right decision. And I do trust the voters. So I just want to end with that comment. Thank you.
What else? Okay. That discussion. Any other new business? Councilwoman Holland, I know you had something earlier. And then Mr. Mayor, you can go next.
Thank you. A topic that came up at the recent Recreation Advisory Committee meeting, and I know that Mr. Aloya and Municipal Clerk Kiernan actually recently responded to some emails from the chair of the Recreation Advisory Committee, is how quorum and voting is determined when you have council liaison identified as a member of committee, and where you have actual township staff as members of the committee, where it's an advisory committee. And so I know that this came up previously. I believe it was when we were establishing the new multicultural committee, and that there had been some statements where other committees may be similarly drafted, where, for example, the council liaison is identified as like a voting member of the advisory committee. And I think that establishes a challenging position where the council liaison would be voting on advice to the council. And so while these are non-binding advisory committees, I think that there may be a preference for the council liaison to truly just act as a liaison. Even if we're identified as a member, we would perhaps be a non-voting or non-quorum member of the committee, and perhaps same for the township administration staff. Because I think that, it's potentially putting like a staff member in an awkward position if they're then making recommendations to the council. Perhaps maybe the advisory committee is making a recommendation that's contrary to what the administration's position had been. So those individuals may not feel capable of voting. And then if they're considered a voting member, it might kind of skew the voting process. So perhaps there's some language that we could incorporate, because I think this is more than just a Recreation Advisory Committee meeting, Recreation Advisory Committee issue. I think it may also apply to the Traffic and Safety Committee, where the council liaison there is also identified as a member and perhaps counts toward quorum or voting results. So perhaps there could be, just a brief addendum to the existing ordinances on committees about how we would calculate voting and quorum requirements for these advisory committees. I just wanted to put it out there. I think it had come up in discussions previously, but it was recently a challenge for the Rec Advisory Committee.
Go ahead. Yes, Mr. Lawyer. Thank you. It's certainly an easy amendment to the ordinance, but they wouldn't. We'd simply call them the liaison. So the liaison could be there with vote, with voice, no vote, that type of stuff, so you're able to participate, but you're not counted for quorum or voting purposes. If that's what the council wants to do on the recreation and the traffic and safety committee.
You may want to,
I think-
there may be other.
I think, I agree. I agree 100%. My idea was always that the only council members that vote on any committee or commission was the mayor on the planning board and the designee or the other representative on the planning board. We are just liaisons to these committees and we should not be voting at all. And I always make that very clear on whatever committee I'm a liaison to. And I do 100% agree. Any township employee that's on there, that puts them in a very bad position. And I think they should just be more of a liaison type of position on these committees. So we should review probably every one and see what their roles are and make sure the wording is
And I agree that it could be a quick fix, like, or perhaps even like a sentence or two.
Yes, Councilman Roman.
I think,
Councilwoman McGrath.
Yeah, I agree as well, and I just don't vote on anything in any of my advisory committees. I'm just silent. But it would be nice to make that official. I also want to add an adjunct issue if we're changing boards and committees, an issue that's been longstanding with the advisory boards and committees with attendance. Is there any way we can add a provision on, if a volunteer member misses a certain amount of meetings in the year and at the end of that year, that's cause for removal? I just, and obviously people's lives change, things happen. And obviously some people let the chairs know, oh, I'm having a surgery, oh, I'm dealing with something very stressful. But sometimes it seems like people drift away without any communication, and it would be nice to put some active volunteers on. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Would you like more than 50% of the meetings, 75%, 3 in a row?
I think we should put that on for further discussion. Kind of probably another time when we look at it, but that's always been like, I'm not going to say an unwritten rule. We do reappoint when their terms are up. So if that's a perfect time, we always try to go to, the chair of the commission and get at least an idea or a date, an attendance record for them, and then base our decision when we reappoint on those, on that attendance record or their participation even. I mean, some people may show up to every meeting and not do anything. And if that's the case, then it's up to us when we reappoint to remove them.
I don't, I wouldn't go as far as participation. I think that's, maybe a step too far, but I thought that we didn't really have the ability. We had to reappoint if someone said, oh yes, I want to keep going, but they haven't been coming to meetings. Maybe the municipal clerk can what the process is.
It's 100% reappointment by the council.
No,
So if someone had poor attendance, we could.
No, for information, I wasn't there. Couple ordinances address that. I just feel that
maybe it's not necessary then.
Councilman Roman.
I would just say basically that I don't believe that there's necessarily an obligation of reappointment. I don't know if any of these terms automatically roll over, or there's a presumption of reappointment, or it's entirely at our discretion based on all of the factors that we want to look at. The point I was going to bring up earlier was then if we are going to essentially change the composition of some of these boards, do we want to make sure they're all odd numbers of members? In which case we'd have to, adjust these and potentially try and find some additional appointees to ensure that none of them, they don't split either.
So we'll review all the boards and have it on for next council meeting. And certainly if you guys have further discussion and want to have attendance or other things, that can be a separate standalone ordinance that applies equally to all. So, again, it's an easy draft once you figure out what your role was.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, I want to offer my support for changing the structure of the committees in this way. I chose not to vote on most items on advisory committees, and except, of course, on the planning board where I'm obligated to. But I was going to bring up the point that Councilman Roman brought up, in that we need to, if we're not going to vote, we should not be counting for quorum. So one of the issues was that I was like, when I was on the traffic and safety committee, I'd be counted for quorum, but I wasn't really comfortable voting. And then now you have, if you're just meeting quorum to actually have a meeting, now you don't even have a majority of the committee voting. So that's a problem. So we need to not only look at restructuring as liaisons, but also looking at what the number for a quorum is. I mean, it should be half plus one, but we have to figure that out, and it should not count that. As far as the attendance piece, I am in favor, and I'd potentially like to see this for discussion at a meeting shortly. Looking at, once again, the attendance. Right now, I agree that we do not have any obligation to reappoint anybody to any committee or commission or board. And frankly, every appointment is new, and that's one of the things that we have always done. However, I do like the idea, if somebody's not engaged on the committee, of being able to make a change on that committee if necessary, because we do have some no-show folks, and when we have people who put in for boards and so on, when we actually have people that want to be on them, it is significant. One of the reasons why sometimes people are not taken off or just simply reappointed is because there's nobody waiting for that position. So that's another thing that we have to think about. But in my opinion, I'd rather have an opening and then invite people to apply than just let somebody get reappointed. I've always thought that, and this is an idea I brought up before, and I'll follow up with our PIO, is that every time that we have an opening on a board or commission, instead of just looking at applications that are out there, that we should put out a help wanted ad, applications being accepted, so that we get more people, because a lot of folks don't know necessarily if there's an opening or not. And we kind of look at applications that have been around for a while, but it would be nice to potentially put out there, here's what this committee does, we have this opening, and then do it as kind of a global collection of applications around reappointment time. That's my comment.
Mr. Mayor. Okay. Yeah, review to do. Okay, next up, new business. Mr. Mayor.
That's me again. So joining this meeting from beautiful Salt Lake City, Utah, has given me a new perspective on our Zoom capabilities. And it's something we have been hearing from residents and participants quite often, that this really is not working optimally. I mean, I am actively participating in the meeting, but it is very difficult to hear. We've heard this feedback often. The mic that is between the town clerk and our deputy manager is barely audible at all. So at minimum, we need to replace that mic. But we've asked, I think the council's asked multiple times for very specific plans to fix this. And if there is a capital project, we absolutely 100% need to get this done as quickly as possible in order to have our capabilities so that our community members can participate more. That's something that I think we've all believed, but I'm going to add the sense of urgency as having to have been sitting on this side and maybe not getting every word, and I'll have to follow up with people individually that I didn't hear, which is something that's not as easy for the members of public to do, but we really need to get a fix to this. We have Councilman Roman, who is an expert in this field, and I think we need to get out of this idea that whatever doesn't work or whatever ideas we had doesn't work, and really have Councilman Roman, if he's willing, come up with a plan to fix this, really look at the cost. I think if it's something that we need to do pretty quickly, and I'd be willing to do that, it's something I think that we're all on board. I'm not going to speak for a member of the council, but based on what you've all said in the past, I think it's there. So just throwing that out there is something that we need to do sooner rather than later. And especially now knowing that this is an option where if we have a council member that's unable to attend in person, whether they're sick or they're out of state or out of the country or whatever, we need to also think about that and participation, and for our experts who zoom in and things like that, being able to optimize the situation, and also for every member of the public. And if nobody has any further discussion, I move to adjourn. But if anybody has any other,
I will just respond to the mayor's comment that I am more than happy to work with anyone in the township administration or staff on resolving this issue. And I know that we are working on a dedicated funding source It tends to be very costly to integrate meeting rooms. Whatever the number you're thinking of, probably double or triple it in your head. And we want to, we need to see what we can line up in terms of money, because this is a do it once, do it right sort of project. But I'll reach out to the administration separately and we can launch a project to start scoping this and figure out a way to get it done. Because I agree, we've kind of band-aided this together for a little too long.
I will be asking at every meeting from this point forward for status updates on this. So administration, councilman, be ready.
Councilwoman McGrath.
Thank you. Yes, I do think that the administration was working this into another agreement to find a funding source, but I do ask that Councilman Roman put this as the highest priority. I understand your expertise, sir, and we've served on the council a long time together. This has been literally on your docket for like 2 or 3 years. So I hear the mayor's frustration and I don't disagree with him. Residents have expressed it. So I look forward to seeing forward-looking progress on this. Thank you.
I gotta say, in all fairness to Councilman Roman, it hasn't been on his docket and he did his best he could to get us to where we are with what's here because no one wanted to step up and spend the money on this. So I think this is the opportunity to do it.
I did actually draw and design an entire system and sent the plans and the equipment list.
It was never presented.
I'll take it out.
I also just want to reflect that I had no expectation that Councilman Roman was supposed to have done this a long time ago. Often we're tasked with doing things and we need the administration to be on board, and things have gotten lost in the past, but it hasn't been his responsibility. I'm asking him as a favor to the township to use his expertise and provide that to us, which could otherwise be very costly to hire a consultant, and certainly to infuse this with our Comcast request. But we also don't want Comcast to come in with an idea that is probably going to be low cost, that won't give us the capabilities we need. So as a result, if we have a plan that we can present as our minimum what we're requiring, it'll give Comcast something to meet. And if they feel like they can't do that, then they're going to need to explain why that's not a possibility or why that isn't a necessary item. But this hasn't been Councilman Roman's responsibility. But I do appreciate, sir, your willingness to step up now.
Is that ends new business? I will open for public comment, last public comment of the evening. Again, step up, state your name and township you live in, and any questions you have.
Hi, I'm Melissa Datt. I reside in Verona. So I wanted to just make a comment on the topic of moving the township elections to November. I am in favor of moving them to November. I do think there's a cost savings. I think it's also flexibility to residents' schedules to vote both, at home as well as at polling places. I think I would counter that a small ballot is like small business, but a big ballot means big items are taking place. And I feel like we've had these referendums and topics in the November ballots. So I think we can continue. I think voters are familiar with. I just want to say that, Mayor, your comment about the informed voter is an insult to me as a residents here. I've voted in every election the 10 years that I've been here, and it sounds highly partisan. So my comments. Thank you.
No one else on Zoom and no one else in comments. I will close public participation. Since there were no questions, thank you for your participation, and I will entertain a motion from anybody.
Motion to close.
I'm sorry, I have a response to the public comment, Deputy Mayor.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
I did just want to thank the resident who just made a comment, but I do want to respond and clarify my comment. Is that my concern is that the people who currently vote in May, like yourself, being that you voted in every election the last 10 years, are educated in that way. My concern is that the November ballot, based on what people have told me and my experiences, especially with the school board elections, is that people are more knowledgeable maybe about state issues and not as knowledgeable about the local issues, and feel obligated to vote because it is on the ballot. Some people just choose not to vote. The point being is that in May, generally the people, not everybody, but generally the people who vote are voting because they have an opinion on the election, they have done some research, they have participated. And I respect those voters, as I've been one since I started living in the town. So my comment was more meant to be a thank you to the voters, and to point out that our voters who participate and inform themselves and participate in the May election are optimal voters as well. And that being said, I move to adjourn.
Yeah, we already had a motion.
Go ahead, second.
The motion was made by Councilwoman McGrath.
I'll second that motion.
Second by Councilman Roman. All in favor?
Aye.